So, how's everybody doing? So we're going to talk about. Actually, before we start, I just want to do something. Everyone talks about cats in tech presentations. Cats are.
Don't look at me. Yes.
I have a nickname from way back when in a past life called of chinchilla, which is a very cute, small, furry rodent. They're unfortunately banned here. But that's why they need a lot of looking after. So I actually want to volunteer for a chinchilla sanctuary. So I was looking at this website earlier. Not really sure what they do. Very cute little fellow over there, but I'm not really sure. I'll have a look around. Let's see if I can figure. It doesn't really tell me very much. Yeah, it's not very helpful, is it? I don't know. Let's see if, there's a phone number. I'll tell you what, I'll give him a call. See. Oh, hey, is that the Northern Chinchilla Sanctuary? Yeah, I'd be interested in volunteering. I just wondered, do you have a volunteer coordinator or something like that? You do? When are they in? Once in a blue moon. Okay. Can I leave some details or something? No? I was just really keen, but oh, you've got to go. Oh, okay. I guess I'll try again later. All right. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, that didn't really work very well. I found another one though. Let's have a look at a different one. Southern. Okay. Another cute little fellow over there, eating a bit of cereal. They like doing that. We care for injured and sick chinchillas. They get to live their days in sawdust-drenched goodness. That sounds really good. Let's see what else they do. They've got a history and a location. Oh, look, it's a clear title. Really helpful. I know what's going on. Can I contact them? Oh, there's a phone number. Tells me when they're there and an email address. Awesome. But it actually says get involved here as well. So look at that. Oh, look at that. There's a volunteer form. I can fill in a form. And hopefully they'll get back to me. That's quite helpful. Cool. I'll do that later. Just thanks for indulging me there. I just wanted to have a look at that. Okay. That was, in case anyone was in doubt, a facetious example to to illustrate a point. But so on to what we're actually going to talk about, because that's a reality in a lot of cases. So firstly, who are we? You up first.
Yep. I'm Kate and I work, go for the microphone. I work at Green Renters.
It's a fake microphone.
I work at Green Renters several days a week. My main projects are communications, running projects, sponsorship and marketing and grant writing, training, and also managing volunteers as well.
And I'm Chris. I do a lot of tech work outside of Green Renters and a lot of kind of governance and all the boring stuff behind the scenes, but it's very important. I also do a lot of community development type work in the tech sector as well, organising meetups and things like this on other subjects. And together, I'm going to make a very bad joke here, let's see. Together we are, someone got it. Not really. We're actually an organisation called Green Renters. I'll let Kate just explain a little bit more about that.
Sure. If you're wondering in this picture what we're holding, it's actually an award we won for World Wildlife Fund's Earth Hour a couple of years ago, and that's actually the picture of the statue, I should say, is actually a panda.
And that is coincidence.
How you interpret that is up to you. I didn't quite get it either, but Peter Garrett and Jamie Drury and someone else I can't remember were very happy to give us that award. Basically, what we do at Green Renters, we're a not-for-profit charity. And what we do is we provide resources and information for people who are renting, that is people who live in rental accommodation with a landlord or a property manager or their property manager may be at the Department of Housing, people that are either living in houses, flats, apartments, rooming houses, boarding houses, social housing, all those sorts of configurations. We provide resources and information on how you can be more sustainable. The reason we started, very simply, it's quite an altruistic one. Chris and I have been living in Brunswick for quite some time. We wanted to make our own rental property a bit more sustainable. Went along to a big expo that was on for 3 days. And when we'd meet with people selling things or running workshops or stalls and say, you know, we're renting, what have you got? Oh no, we don't really do that, no, it's a bit too hard. Most of their emphasis was on things like solar panels, big picture retrofitting, construction, building from scratch, things that you can't do when you're renting a property that you don't actually own yourself. So we thought, okay, we'll start a blog, which we did, and we got a lot of information, a lot of interest rather, very quickly from people running other organisations and in the community and renters. And they said, oh, what else do you do? Can you run some workshops? And this was around the time that things like Twitter and Facebook were just kind of coming around. So we started running the organisation. We left full-time work to do it. And now we have international presence. We have staff in Melbourne, Sydney and Adelaide, and we run workshops around the country and projects. So really our remit is about sustainability, but we do it a little bit differently to other organisations who are, pushing an environmental message. We focus very much on the practical of what you can do yourself. We aim to really develop people's skills through knowledge and sharing experiences rather than pure lobbying. So as you may be aware, in Victoria, for example, there are no minimum standards for legislation to make homes more sustainable for renters, for rental properties. So, you know, we could spend all our hours lobbying to get that changed. Many people have tried over the last 5 years and not done so well. Not a lack of effort in trying. So what we really do is we work with people on what they can do themselves. We run things like forums and expos, lots of different workshops in different capacities, and in many respects we move outside the sustainability circles. It's quite rare for us to go and do a green event. We tend to do things in different ways. We partner with groups like 3000 or, what would be some other examples, Chris? Corporates sometimes, or housing organisations, other charities, rather than strictly sort of doing green things with a green audience, because they're the same number of people that come who invariably already have the message. So I guess we try and work a little bit different to those people who don't identify as being green or into sustainability. That's really a nutshell of how we approach our work. We're pretty heavily involved in social media. We have a website, and we do a lot of things online as well with our work.
You want to come around here so we don't have to need to see what's coming.
Yeah.
So just whilst we're adjusting ever so slightly there, we'd be interested to also know, as we have a moderately intimate crowd, what's the types of organisations that people work for, and what's the kind of problems you have getting people involved, I guess, if anyone wants to volunteer that, or we can save it for later. It's up to you. Oh, you can hear me. Is there anything, or would you rather wait until a bit later when we can talk about some specific case studies and problems later?
For a non-profit, which is an interfaith network, so it's people of different faiths come together and we run organisations. Often it's because it's an older profile, people don't necessarily have the business skills to contribute. Not that they don't want to, so they do it in different ways. So it's about how we engage people, even recruit people to help with the organisation.
Okay. This presentation will focus a little bit on kind of tech to support you in the nature of the sort of NetSquared network, but there will also be a lot of just however you want to apply it, tips as well. I guess the other thing to point out is, firstly, this particular presentation of this presentation is focused around non-profits, but the same thing applies for lots of different types of organisation, and we'll look at some of those in a second. The same applies. And equally, we're not saying that we've always stuck to this advice as well. We've got things very wrong at times, and we'll mention some of that because we feel when you learn from other people's mistakes, it also helps you figure out what went wrong and how to better it as well. And we certainly have made some mistakes ourselves. So let's, there's going to be a few miscellaneous tips in a sort of rough order. And I guess the overarching theme is, if you need help, why put up so many barriers and why make it difficult in the first place? Let's try and make it as easy as possible to get people interested and then keep them on board. That's the basic principle. So initially, we say you might need people for a non-profit, which is the context here today, an open source project. I do a lot of tech work. An open source community is a big distributed one that is no real different. You're trying to get people to commit time and skills to something where they could be getting paid for it. A startup, very relevant here. Again, usually little money and time. You're relying on people's passion. Just get involved and hope that it'll show dividends in the future. A testing sprint. You can tell that some of this slide has come from a tech focus of this presentation. I guess just things where you might need some people to help out for a particular amount of time. Maybe a stall as well. And things like cake bakes, sausage sizzles, things like that. You might just need 10 people for one event. And that has its own set of requirements as well.
Should I give an overview of what we use volunteers for?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I thought I might just explain what we use volunteers for at Green Renters. In case you're wondering, it's not just the dynamo of Kate and Chris and our other sessional staff. We do have a lot of volunteers in different capacities. Some volunteers will come in and do administration work. And whilst we might think that's as boring as hell, typing things in, they're happy to do it. We offer people opportunities to do a wide variety of work, some of it more creative than others. And there are some people that actually enjoy doing that. We have music on, they get lunch from us, they're happy to do an hour or two of data entry, for example. We do a lot of events, obviously, as I said earlier, with workshops. With a workshop, a lot of our workshops are hands-on. At the moment, I do an awful lot of demonstration or involving kind of workshops where people are learning particular skills. It might be learning to make your own skincare, make your own bath products, jams and preserves, pickles, things like that, where you need people to help you set up the food, chop it up, clean up, all those sorts of things. We use a lot of volunteers for that. We use volunteers for things like policy development and research. For example, we have someone at the moment working on an apartment project where if we get a suitable venue in the future, we will have a pop-up apartment that people can come and see, a green apartment that focuses on what you can do that's temporary and removable but still sustainable. We also do, as I said, we do a lot of events, anything from like a workshop in the Food and Wine Festival to recently we did an expo in Redfern in Sydney for people in rooming houses and social housing. Had people helping there from front, joining us at the door to helping with the meals, a bit of everything. So I guess we have a dichotomy between people who like a task-orientated project to do, where they're pretty much instructed, and people that are more keen to have something where they're given a bit more free rein. Whether that's a project, it's a research, it's doing something that ultimately is a way for them to choose what they want to do that's a little bit different.
So we need these people, you need these people to perform these tasks. So as we saw with my facetious demo, why do we make it so hard in the first place? And hard may be just not necessarily intentional. Sometimes it is intentional and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you just haven't thought about it. Sometimes there is a system in place that people have to jump through about 3 hoops to get to. And that's hard enough for people who are on the payroll, let alone someone you're expecting to volunteer. So why do we make it so hard in the first place? So let's have a look at a few tips in relation to that. So the initial one would be make it easy to get started. We're going to look at a very specific example from our site, and I'm going to show you some of the things behind the scenes. Let's bear in mind here, we're going to talk a little bit about technology, but the technology is irrelevant, really. I can tell you what we use and how we've configured it, but it really doesn't matter. You pick the things that work for you and the tools that work for you in your current setup. So for example, one of the main things on our site is we have a lot of content. It's one of the main ways people actually interact with us, really. And we can't write it all ourselves. We can't maintain it all ourselves. We've personally run out of things we can talk about. Secondly, we don't have time to write it. So one thing we've done is a couple of items to look at here. This is about just opening up. Don't be afraid of letting people just have a go at editing things for you. If you're using something like a content management system, there's always a way out and always a way back. So here we have on the left-hand side, this is our contribute page. Are you interested? Do you want to get involved? all you have to do is go to a page and start writing. That's it. That, of course, does open us up to a bit of spam, but it also opens us up to a lot of non-spam. And we could just delete the spam. It's not that difficult. So it outweighs the negatives, the positives outweigh the negatives. And then we also have articles that we've flagged as things we want improved. Some of these articles are a few years old. Things have changed. We'd like people's input on improving them. They've been flagged. They show up in a table. People could just jump in and edit them straight away. And then likewise, on every article, we have a box saying, do you think something's missing? Edit it here. So in reference to the kind of fear of just opening yourself up for all manner of rubbish, there is always Control or Command for the Apple fans, Z, undo. Most content management systems have revisions. We just revert them back. And this is how we mark things for review. I'll get to the end of this kind of section and I'll show you some practical examples. And then equally, so this is how we attract volunteers. We have a form. This is the volunteer page. It's got a list of projects that we've got on at the moment that we're looking for volunteers. They have again been flagged, just as there's an opportunity for volunteers. They can be projects or events. Not all of our workshops need a volunteer, more of which we'll come to later. Express your interest. There's a bit more to it than that. But again, it's just an initial bit of data collection on qualifications, experience, interests. That's an important one. Again, we'll touch on that later. People don't always want to volunteer for something they know. They actually want to learn something new. And then I always get sent an email when someone expresses interest, but equally whenever we logged in, there's a little dashboard with the interest that I can click through and have a look at. And I'll show you that now. So this is actually live. We have Wi-Fi here, so that's good. This is an article. You've seen it before. People can jump in. What I should actually do is do it as a non-logged in person in this case.
I think the original working title for that article was Bread Making in a Crappy Rental Property Owner. But we came up with something a little bit more savoury.
So here we go. I'm not logged in, but I can still just edit it. It does ask me to prove I'm a human being. Doesn't completely prevent you from spam, but it's a slight barrier. So I have to put in my name and email address, but I can still just go in and make all the changes I want. Let's make one. That's something I probably don't want. That's a good example of how we can still just revert it. So yep, I've made a change. I've not tested this for a while, so this is where I really hope it works.
C.
Oh, is it a C? Damn those things. Unfortunately, if we didn't have that, we would just get reams of spam. And I forgot to fill that in, but anyway. It's about as little as a barrier as we could put up, I think. So I've already proved I'm a human, so it's not asking for me again. But anyway, this is where I point out some of the flaws in our system. It's not perfect. That was our remit at the beginning. So this is never going to show the version that someone's just submitted, because that would be crazy, just to let everything just open up, whatever. It's slightly open. But if I go now into the revisions here, and I've got an email, which may even pop up in the next second, telling me there's a new version. But if we look here, there should be, fingers crossed. Yes, there we go. Someone, it says current, but it actually isn't for some other reason, which I won't bother going into because that gets into extremely technical stuff. But you can see someone just submitted a new version. I can look at it and I can delete it or accept it or whatever, and revert backwards and forwards. It has its other uses, of course.
It's current now, or do you have to approve it?
It's. I think I've just noticed a slight flaw in my system in that I should be able to approve it and I haven't. But it's also not current because we have something called caching on, which means it's not actually showing the latest version to prevent heaps and heaps of database access. So until I clear the cache and refresh it all, it's not actually showing anyway, which is a slight get out clause of my explanation there. But through doing a live demo, I've just noticed a slight flaw. I never said we were perfect, but we could always revert it anyway.
Okay.
And it won't actually show until we clear that cache anyway. So that's one very quick example. And equally here, if I went to the edit screen, we can see where we would mark it for revision. This article doesn't actually need any revision. There's a lot of stuff in here. As an admin, you get to see a lot of things that are probably not particularly relevant to this talk, but right down here we have this box missing a label, but anyway, we run this website pretty much on a voluntary basis as it is, so there's a lot of things that we just put up with. I know what that box does, even though it doesn't tell me what it does. So, and here we have a big list of all the articles we want to get revised at some point. Doesn't mean people will, but we will get them revised at some point. And it also means if someone ever says, I want to contribute, you can just point them straight at a list and say, jump in with these. And then here's the main contribute page. So this is just an example of the articles. And here's the list of articles. And we currently have no projects we're looking for volunteers for. That's not true, is it? We should update that. But anyway.
Yep, it's on the task list for tomorrow.
So in the other side of things, so if someone wants to volunteer, here's the form we just looked at. This is me logged in as an admin. Oh, sorry, I was in the wrong section. That's why I got myself confused there. There's the form. Here's some of the things we are looking for. We do allow another. Your interests, some of the projects you might be interested in, but also an opportunity to mention some other things there. We're using a CRM, which I don't want to get into anything too complex because that starts to turn this talk into something else, but it's basically a way of managing people who interact with us. To summarise it very quickly, and here is the list of people who have recently expressed interest that I'm yet to react to. And if I jump in here, I can see that's the form they've submitted and have a look at what they submitted. I will whip past email addresses as quickly as possible for privacy. There we go, right. Oh, it's hard to whip past that one, but anyway. So she's mentioned some extra details there, but then equally, everything is recorded on their profile as well, and we have a big sort of group holding all those people who've ever expressed an interest.
Neither of them put spaces between lots of their words.
It's probably because the text box isn't very easy to look at. So that's, again, as I say, I do a lot of the website as a volunteer, so it's not all perfect, but it's the lean approach, minimum viable product, and we get through it.
Smart status there.
So that is actually that's basically
Do you rank their intelligence?
No, it's a dynamic group. It's a dynamic group showing us all the people who have expressed interest to be a volunteer. So it'll update. It's just the parlance for this system we use, a smart group. It's a dynamic group, basically, just showing me all the people who've expressed interest in being a volunteer, and it will change over time. And we'll move them out of it when we've kind of upgraded them to be a volunteer as opposed to someone who is interested in being a volunteer. So that's just a very quick overview of something that you may look to be interested in. And now I'll pass back to Kate.
Yeah, I might make a couple of points first before I get into this topic about. Oh, you won't use that. About the, I guess the nature of our website. It's fairly egalitarian, so anyone could go on there and submit an article or an opinion or change something, with the caveat that we can yes or no it. And I guess one of the reasons we do that is also it makes it very much a community-based focus, so it is very much open to people contributing. But secondly, because one of the main reasons people resonate with green renters that we've found is people who feel quite specifically isolated or excluded from the environment movement. People who've gone along to something for being green, or they've joined an organisation and they've found that, I think the transition towns is a particular one where people have identified, they've wanted to do something and they've kind of found, oh, hang on, everyone's a homeowner. I'm not feeling part of this. I'm feeling excluded. They're focusing on things I can't do as a renter, And so people come to us very specifically because they say, well, hey, I'm a renter too. I'm one of those 30% of the population that rent. I want to be part of something too. I want to make changes. Why is it all about what you can do if you own a home or you're building, you know? So people really feel that, and this is something we very much nurture, that this is their organisation.
And I guess that emphasises the making it easy to get involved in the first place.
We want to make it so people can come on board and have a say and do things. And like I said, we deal with a very diverse range of people, from people that are very highly academic to people with almost no literacy. When we go and do work in a rooming house, for example, there are people there who can't read. They can't access a website. You know, so we really try and make it their organisation as much as ours. You know, we lead it, sure.
And on the note of community, it leads nicely to the next little section, which is, I'll let Kate handle this one.
Absolutely. It's about going where the people are. If you're wanting volunteers, thinking about where are the people that would be interested in your organisation. For example, if you're wanting people to do design, perhaps it's somewhere like 99 Designs. If you're wanting student interns, and that's something I do highly recommend, and we'll talk about that in a minute, I would recommend universities and TAFEs, very good for student volunteers, particularly if you want people that want to do a longer term project. At the moment, we've just started a volunteer who starts this week.
Thursday.
Yeah, a community development volunteer working with us to do a particular project we're doing, which is making postcards of renters in both Mornington Peninsula municipality, or shire if you like, and also the Maribyrnong region as well. So having a series of renters on postcards. He's involved in finding those renters, engaging with them. We've done a bit of storyboarding, but getting that happening. So you need somewhere where you need an extra person to do a meaningful project, get a volunteer. I'd also focus on probably some of the more legitimate organisations, the universities, Volunteering Victoria, Volunteering Australia. You're going to get quality volunteers. The other one I'd also mention is, what's it called?
The little caveat to those organisations is you often need insurance, which can be costly. So there's a slight barrier to you getting involved there.
So the other one, I just remember what they're called. It's called Good Company, and they focus on people that have been at a higher end of organisations. They've been the CEOs, they've been the accountants, they've been the lawyer or the advisor or what have you, who want, and their role is not to come in and do your bookkeeping. They will teach someone on your committee to do it. For example, if you needed help with your governance because you're incorporated, they will assist you with those sorts of things. So there's a lot of organisations. If you want people to do your more basic tasks, whether it's staffing a stall, which sometimes can, you do need some people that are conversant enough to be able to talk to people coming up, if you're not there, as an obvious caveat. A lot of the sort of smaller organisations can also be a good option for getting volunteers. I ask people when they want to volunteer, what can they offer? What kinds of skills have they got? What's their CV perhaps, or what have you? But also, what do they want to learn? What is that attracts them to volunteering? It often is the three things I've found, which has been backed up by research, which I also do in my other job. I work in community development in another role 2 days a week, is they've actually researched people and found why do people volunteer? And the three biggest things that come up is they want to learn a new skill. Someone they know has asked them, or alternatively, they want to do something they enjoy. So it may be a skill they have, it may be something they're developing. An example I'll give you of this is we had someone recently doing, was it information systems that Keith was doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, doing information systems, which is more...
It was business information systems, yeah.
Thank you. I wasn't entirely sure what the course was. I wasn't always present for those sessions. We said, what are you interested in? What kinds of things do you like? And he said, I'm interested in design. He designed our logo, our new logo. Great. We were happy with that. It was awesome. And it gave him a chance to do something different, to get a new skill. So it's not just about what they have that's useful. The other thing I'd say with that, we find as a sustainability organisation, we get a lot of people interested in sustainability who ring us. Okay, I'm doing my master's in environmental science management, or something very convoluted. It's usually a master's level, sometimes less. And invariably, when you say to them, if I go and meet with them, which, as you all appreciate as small businesses or not-for-profits, is not paid work to go and meet with someone. And I say, okay, what are you interested in doing with your course? Oh, I want to work in the developing world. Okay. We work with renters in Melbourne and Sydney and rural areas, and So maybe a little bit different. And the most common question I ask people is, have you had a look at our website? Oh, no. So, it's really about finding people that are a fit to what you need, what you want people to be able to do, but also what they're interested in. People will respond to tasks and roles that they're interested in. And if I can give one example about that, it's really about providing people with opportunities where either they can do bigger projects. That seems to be a pretty consistent one we get from people. They want to do that stuff. Or some people do want to do that basic stuff. So really managing which is their expectation with that.
Yeah, Kate's already touched on this a little bit, but I guess the next section would be empowerment. So the tasks that we would say it isn't okay generally to get a volunteer to do is not the photocopying, unfortunately. It's not the coffee making, unfortunately, unless they really want to, of course, but don't just by default give those tasks to a volunteer. And equally on the flip side of that, let them see you doing the unpleasant tasks that no one else wants to do, because it levels the structure. It shows that everyone is fair go and doing the same thing. So Kate often needs dishes washed at workshops, and Kate will generally do it because
I'm scrubbing the pots.
because it shows that we're all equal.
Yeah.
You're not just going to do the crappy tasks, and I'm going to do the great tasks, and that's it. We'll all mix in together on what we want to do. Then in relation to that would also come courtesy. Say thank you to people and include them in what you're doing. So it's not, it's our organisation. They're a representative there with you. We often will include our more long-term volunteers on our LinkedIn page or give them an email address and things like that, because it also helps them if they're looking for work and things like that too, give them an air of authenticity. And thank yous can come in many different ways. Thank you can literally be a thank you. It can be drinks. It can be some food. There's a lot of organisations I've volunteered with in the past where I've worked exceptionally hard and no one said anything at the end of it. And it doesn't really make you want to go back. And that is an issue. And these are big organisations that have the resources to do so as well.
Can I give an example?
We'll probably better keep moving on, I think. We're running a little late. So I guess one of the big ones, though, is are you actually prepared? If you're a small organisation, managing volunteers can be time-consuming. It can sometimes be as time-consuming as doing the task yourself as well. That is one thing to bear in mind and be blunt about. So firstly, as Kate touched on earlier, this is our too many cooks picture.
Oh, that's creepy.
It's a bit creepy and a bit pixelated, I do, unfortunately.
I see it.
What do you actually need? As Kate said, we don't need any other sustainability experts. That's kind of what we offer. We actually need people who are good at marketing quite often, is something we lack in, things like that. So don't necessarily just go for volunteers because they're there, often, is one question. Go for the people that you actually have a role for and actually have something for them to do, because otherwise they will probably get bored because you don't really have anything for them to do. And equal to that is don't take on so many that you can't manage them and you can't cope. The only cat, I do apologise. And this is one of the problems we've sometimes had in the past. It's probably the one that we're most guilty of. We've got a big list of volunteers that we haven't been able to do anything with properly, and they've lost interest. And we've lost that potential of them to do something in the future because we never engaged with them properly, and they got bored, they got restless and left. And so don't take on 10 volunteers because 10 volunteers come forward. If you've only got the capability to use one and use them effectively, and then maybe come back to the other 9 later. That's, sometimes it's hard to know when to stop and say no as well. So in wrapping up, we've got a few resources for you. One I'll mention, which is slightly specific to the tech space. John O'Bacon is actually the community manager of the Ubuntu project, which is an open source operating system, but very big, very widely distributed. And he does a lot of talks around managing a volunteer community. And this book, it's a little tech focused, but it's actually a free download. So really, you could still get a lot out of it. And he gives a lot of good examples and interviews with other people who run equally like the founder of Linux, which is a massive project. Things like that. You know, they may not be relevant to your sector, but they're big volunteer-driven projects. And Kate will just touch on some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, our community is a really good resource for finding resources for getting volunteers, but also for supporting volunteers. Anything from, you know, making sure you've got the right insurance for your volunteers, making sure you've got appropriate policies in place, that you've got, you know, workbooks and you've got their rights sort of mapped out, which should be, I might add, should be comparable to what your normal employees get. They shouldn't get less than that. I wanted to give an example of that really quickly. One of our volunteers thought she's from the States and she wanted to get some sort of higher end, big organisation volunteer experience, went and volunteered for a particular large environmental organisation.
Just leave it there.
Yes, yep. I won't say which one. And basically she was sitting in a basement room, being managed by another volunteer, and her role was, oh, we've got all these documents in printed documents, put them in front of her. Can you type these so we can make them into PDFs? We don't have any other copy of them. She was not told when she could go home, when to have a lunch break, anything. The volunteer supervising her went home at 5 o'clock. She sat there and went, what do I do? Because the first day. And actually just got a bit upset, understandably. And yeah, so I think it's really important to support your volunteers, and these resources are quite a good way of doing it. Volunteering Australia is also a site if you're looking for volunteers with particular capabilities. So you're wanting to find someone with a particular skill set, but I'd also say with that, don't discount the universities, particularly if you're wanting course-based skill sets, like it might be someone wanting an accountant, for example, a student studying accountancy, or someone doing marketing or PR or what have you, someone that can bring something to your organisation that, you know, may have a completely different perspective than you and often works to your advantage.